The echoes of the forest. In the heart of Oregon's dense forests lay a small, isolated cabin that had belonged to Ethan's grandfather. The cabin was surrounded by towering pines, their needles whispering in the wind. Ethan had come to the cabin seeking solitude and a chance to disconnect from the world, unaware of the dark secrets that the forest held. On his first night, as Ethan settled into the cabin, he heard a soft, rhythmic tapping on the window. He brushed it off as the branches swaying in the wind. But as the night wore on, the tapping grew louder, more insistent. Unable to sleep, Ethan decided to investigate. He grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, the cold night air biting at his skin. The tapping continued, now seeming to echo from all around him. As he shone his flashlight on the trees, he caught a glimpse of movement, a shadow flitting between the trunks. Feeling a chill run down his spine, Ethan retreated to the cabin and locked the door. The tapping stopped, but he felt uneasy, as if something was watching him from the darkness. The next day, Ethan explored the forest, hoping to uncover the source of the previous night's disturbance. As he wandered deeper into the woods, he stumbled upon an old well, covered in moss and surrounded by stones. Curious, he approached and peered inside, but saw nothing but darkness. Suddenly, he heard a whisper, a soft voice calling his name. He spun around, but saw no one. The forest was silent, the only sound being the rustling of leaves. Ethan felt a growing sense of dread, as if the forest itself was alive and aware of his presence. Returning to the cabin, Ethan found an old journal that had belonged to his grandfather. As he read through the pages, he discovered accounts of strange occurrences, whispers in the night, shadows that seemed to move on their own, and an unsettling feeling of being watched. His grandfather had written about the legend of the forest, a tale of spirits that wandered the woods, searching for lost souls to join them. The journal warned never to venture into the forest at night, for that was when the spirits were most active. Ethan realized that he was not alone in the forest. The whispers and shadows were real, remnants of those who had succumbed to the forest's call. Determined to leave, he packed his belongings and prepared to head back to civilization. As he stepped outside, the forest seemed to close in around him, the trees looming menacingly. The whispers began again, growing louder with each step he took. Ethan quickened his pace, feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon him. Reaching his car, he fumbled with the keys, desperate to escape. As the engine roared to life, he glanced back at the cabin one last time. In the window, he saw a figure, a shadowy silhouette watching him with hollow eyes. Ethan drove away, the forest's whispers fading into the distance. He vowed never to return, knowing that the forest was alive with the echoes of lost souls. The cabin and its haunting secrets would remain, a chilling reminder of the night he dared to enter the heart of the forest. The forgotten graveyard. In the small town of Eldridge, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there lay an old graveyard long forgotten by the townsfolk. It was said to be cursed, haunted by restless spirits who had been buried there centuries ago. Few dared to venture near, but the stories and legends had always fascinated Emma, a curious historian eager to uncover the truth behind the graveyard's dark past. One crisp autumn afternoon, Emma set out to explore the graveyard, armed with her camera and a notebook. The entrance was marked by a weathered stone archway, the iron gates creaking as she pushed them open. A chill ran down her spine as she stepped onto the overgrown path, the air heavy with the scent of decaying leaves. The headstones were ancient, many of them cracked and worn, their inscriptions barely legible. As Emma wandered through the graveyard, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Shadows seemed to dance between the trees, and the wind carried faint whispers that made her skin crawl. She stopped at a particularly large mausoleum, its entrance sealed with a rusted iron door. Intrigued, Emma took out her camera and snapped a few photos, hoping to capture any evidence of paranormal activity. As she reviewed the images, she noticed something unusual. A faint figure standing in the background, its features blurred and indistinct. Emma's heart raced, but her curiosity outweighed her fear. She continued her exploration, delving deeper into the graveyard. She came across a cluster of graves belonging to a family that had perished in a mysterious fire in the late 1800s. The legend claimed that their spirits haunted the graveyard, seeking vengeance for their untimely demise. As dusk settled over the graveyard, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. The temperature dropped, and a dense fog rolled in, shrouding the headstones in an eerie mist. Emma felt an inexplicable urge to leave, but a strange force seemed to pull her deeper into the graveyard. The whispers grew louder, filling her ears with chilling voices that seemed to come from all directions. She spun around, trying to locate the source, but the fog obscured everything. Panic set in as she realized she was lost, trapped in a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Desperate to escape, Emma stumbled through the graveyard, her heart pounding in her chest. The whispers became deafening, as if the spirits were all around her, their presence palpable and suffocating. She could feel cold hands brushing against her skin, unseen forces trying to hold her back. Finally, she reached the entrance, gasping for breath as she burst through the gates. The whispers ceased, and the fog lifted, revealing the moonlit graveyard behind her. Emma collapsed onto the ground, shaken but relieved to be free. As she collected herself and made her way back to town, she realized she had uncovered more than she had bargained for. The legends were true. The graveyard was haunted by restless spirits, trapped in a cycle of torment and despair. Emma vowed never to return, knowing that the spirits of the forgotten graveyard would remain, waiting for the next curious soul to wander into their domain. Here are the remaining 2 horror stories, each designed to evoke genuine fear with unique concepts and settings. The House on Blackwater Lane. In the bustling city of Boston, a narrow, cobbled street named Blackwater Lane hid a sinister secret. It was an area most locals avoided, its eerie reputation whispered among residents for generations. At the end of this forgotten alley stood an old Victorian house, its windows boarded up, and the paint peeling like ancient skin. Some claimed it was haunted by the original owner, a reclusive artist who had disappeared without a trace. Marcus, a young journalist with a penchant for the macabre, was determined to uncover the truth about the house on Blackwater Lane. He had heard stories of strange noises, ghostly apparitions, and inexplicable cold spots that seemed to cling to anyone who dared approach the building. Armed with his camera and a digital recorder, Marcus decided to spend the night inside, documenting his findings for a feature article. As he entered the house, the floorboards creaked underfoot, and the air was thick with dust and decay. The walls were adorned with faded paintings, distorted faces that seemed to watch his every move. Marcus set up his equipment, the silence around him punctuated by the occasional drip of water from a leaky pipe. Hours passed, and Marcus found himself inexplicably drawn to the basement. He descended the creaking stairs, the air growing colder with each step. The basement was cluttered with old furniture and canvases, and in the corner stood a tall, antique mirror draped in a tattered sheet. Intrigued, Marcus pulled the sheet away, revealing a mirror covered in strange, swirling patterns that seemed to dance in the dim light. As he gazed into the mirror, he felt a strange pull, a sensation of being watched not from behind, but from within. His reflection seemed normal at first, but then it shifted subtly, a shadow passing across his face that wasn't his own. Marcus blinked and rubbed his eyes, convinced it was a trick of the light. The temperature in the basement plummeted, and Marcus shivered as his breath misted in the air. He heard a faint whispering, the voices seeming to emanate from the mirror itself. As he focused on the reflection, he saw it. A figure standing behind him, gaunt and hollow-eyed, its expression twisted in agony. Panicked, Marcus turned to find the room empty, yet the whispers grew louder, reverberating in his skull. The figure in the mirror reached out, its skeletal hand pressing against the glass as if trying to break free. Marcus stumbled backward, his heart pounding as the figure's eyes locked onto his, filled with an indescribable longing. Desperate to escape, Marcus dashed up the stairs. The mirror's reflection burned into his mind. The whispers followed him, echoing through the house as if the walls themselves were alive with the voices of the damned. He burst out the front door, gasping for air, the whispers finally fading into silence. Outside, the city was alive with the hum of traffic and distant laughter, but Marcus felt a lingering unease. He glanced back at the house on Blackwater Lane, its windows dark and foreboding. He knew he could never return, haunted by the memory of those spectral eyes watching him from the shadows. Though he had escaped the house physically, the experience had left an indelible mark on his soul. The whispers of the house on Blackwater Lane continued to echo in his dreams, a chilling reminder of the night he dared to confront the unknown horrors that lurked within. The curse of the midnight show. In a small town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, the local theater had been the heart of the community for decades. But beneath its charming facade lay a dark secret that few dared to speak of. It was said that the midnight show was cursed, and those who attended would find themselves trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. Henry, a skeptic by nature, had heard the rumors but dismissed them as mere superstition. When the theater announced a special midnight show to celebrate its centennial, Henry saw it as the perfect opportunity to debunk the myth and enjoy a classic horror film. As the clock struck midnight, the theater filled with eager patrons, their faces lit by the flickering light of the marquee. The film began, and the audience settled into their seats, the eerie strains of the soundtrack weaving through the air like a chilling lullaby. But as the film progressed, Henry noticed something strange. The images on the screen seemed to shift and warp, the actors' faces twisting into grotesque masks of fear. The audience remained entranced, their eyes glazed over as if in a trance. Henry felt a creeping unease wash over him, the sensation of being watched growing stronger with each passing moment. The air grew heavy, and he could hear the faint whispers of voices coming from the shadows, just beyond the edge of the screen. Suddenly, the theater went dark, the projector stuttering to a halt. Panic spread through the audience as they realized they were trapped in darkness. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to seep from the very walls. Henry's heart raced as he stumbled through the aisles, searching for an exit. The whispers turned to screams, echoing in his mind like a haunting symphony of terror. He could feel unseen hands grasping at him, pulling him deeper into the theater's dark embrace. In a moment of clarity, Henry remembered the emergency exit at the back of the theater. He pushed through the panicked crowd, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he reached the door. With a desperate shove, he burst outside into the cool night air. The theater loomed behind him, silent and foreboding, its facade a shadowy silhouette against the moonlit sky. Henry collapsed on the pavement, gasping for breath as he tried to shake off the lingering terror of what he had experienced. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Henry knew he had narrowly escaped the curse of the midnight show. But the whispers continued to haunt him, a reminder of the theater's dark secret that would remain hidden from the world. Though he had survived, Henry was forever changed, the memory of that night etched into his soul. The theater stood as a silent sentinel, its doors closed to the unwary, guarding the secrets of the midnight show and the horrors that lay within.